We're going to do something now which is a first for the Patrons Conference. I'm actually going to interview two would-be legends who are both graduates of this university. Being a little unorthodox and starting with the male, David Lane studied management and hospitality at the University of Plymouth between 1996 and 2000 and achieved a BSc Honours degree. His sandwich year was in Gleneagles, Orchard, where he specialised in food and beverage, and from there on he joined Millennium and Copthorne Hotels, which I happened to be CEO at the time, so goodness what he's going to tell you about his industrial experience, but he has kind of given me a heads up and a slight warning. David has held a number of positions in his early time with us, and we really did literally drop him on his head in that he was managing opening of hotels in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai and Sharjah. Over the past 10 years he has returned to operations and has had a number of management posts within M&C, and he's currently the general manager of the Copthorne Hotel, Birmingham. On a personal level, he is a keen cyclist, and last year he took part in the Paris-Roubaix race and a number of other mountain endurance races, and you'll meet him in a little while. Moving on now to Mary Grose. Mary Grose is in fact also of a hotel dynasty, and the Thurston Hotel, which is the most beautiful product, and many of you will know it, has been in the family for 150 years, so she knows as much about hotel keeping right from being very young as Alex or Olga does. The other thing to say before I just mention about her career is that she's very modest, so she's probably going to tell me off for saying this, but she's a brilliant horsewoman and a championship show jumper and has represented England, so there's someone who finds time to do an awful lot. She's done a tremendous lot in sales and marketing and was with Hilton International. She started her gap year in Australia, which was a very brave thing to do, and I had a little bit of contact with Mary when she was out there, understanding that she needed to meet some people and made some introductions, and she graduated very recently in 2012. So would you please welcome Mary Grose and David Lane. So hi guys. Really good to have you here, and thank you for being so brave in terms of sitting here with me. And so we're fair with the audience, let me say that we have spoken about this interview, and much of it will be live and off the cuff, but we have discussed some questions, and I promise both of them there will be no difficult ones or curveballs. I lied. But it is interesting just to tell you that we have discussed what we're going to talk about a little bit. We're going to have an open session with you, the audience, which obviously we know nothing about, and we're going to end up with a little discussion about certain things which we've done in Plymouth here over the last year ago. So thank you for being here, I really appreciate it. I'd like to ask you first of all a very simple question, which is to both of you. Maybe we start with you, Mary. Why did you actually decide to go into hospitality, and when did you make that kind of jump? Was it when you were a wee baby at home or something else?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think coming from a hospitality background and having my family so heavily involved with hotels, I sort of grew up in it, which is good because from a young age I learned all the different departments and sort of worked my way through it, which found me into sales and sort of helped me sort of have a niche in what I wanted to do. But I think I was sort of born with it really, and it's in the blood, so yeah, I couldn't escape. Okay,
and being in the blood, like Alex Felicia was saying,
yes,
is something you just can't get away from, isn't it?
It is. It can work to your advantage, and it can also be a disadvantage as well. It's just playing on your strengths and having your own experience and knowing who you are as an individual before you then go into your family business. A bit like Alex was saying about how she went away for 2 years into Hong Kong where nobody knew her, and then sort of had her experience there to start with. So yeah.
Great. David, it certainly wasn't in your blood, I know that. So
no, it wasn't. I think a little bit like Alex, right at the beginning I was dropped on my head as a young child, and that explains quite a few things. But it meant I really wanted to be a chef, and at the age of 15, I got a Saturday job as a kitchen porter. And that spurred me on a little bit more to be a chef, because I could see all these chefs in the kitchen, preparing all this food, and that really excited me. And at the time, the industry really wasn't seen as a career. And my father in particular sort of turned his nose up a little bit and said, what you really want to do is a phase and you'll get out of it. That spurred me on even more to want to make go of it, make a career of it. So that's what I did. I was still at school and I realised that being a chef is actually a lot of hard work. So took the decision to come to Plymouth University, and it really went on from there.
Thank you. Just to give you two guys a breather, I just want to say to the audience, when I was fiddling around there then, I want to tell you what I was doing. I was here about a year ago, with, that's still impress you, David, with my son. And I had a clock here, and he said, Dad, you cannot sit in front of students with a clock, it's just not possible. So I want you to know I was setting my special program on my computer here so that I know when time's up. You must be impressed with that, David.
I'm very impressed. It's the move forward.
Let me ask you this, which I know you're expecting this question. Why did you choose Plymouth? And I've been asked by the academic staff to request that you're as honest as possible. So why did you choose Plymouth? What was it?
Plymouth, I started at Southampton College. I did 2 years of foundation degree there, and it was kind of a natural progression to go on to Plymouth. But that aside, for hospitality especially, Plymouth University is one of the top places to be, I think, to start your career or to start your education even. So that's what drove me to it. It was an optional year to take to finish off my degree here, but I definitely wanted to take it, having it on the doorstep, and just it being a great platform to start with, really.
Okay, great. David?
It was a 4-hour drive away from my parents' house. That's 4 hours notice to get up, get the bedroom cleaned and be presentable. No, but seriously, it was, for me, there was a sense of community, and I looked at a number of universities around the country, and it was the only place where I felt that sense of community of students and also the staff actually helping and going to that common goal of getting some sort of qualification at the end of it. And that's what excited me in terms of coming to Plymouth. And that's the sole reasons as to why I chose this university.
Okay. I'd like to stay with the kind of Plymouth connection for a while before we get on to your careers and what you're doing, because there's lots of students out there who will have all kinds of issues, some problems, some opportunities, but they will be thinking kind of, you did it, and what kind of was going through your mind at the time. So let me get on to the fact that what did you like about university life here in Plymouth, and what did you dislike? For the audience, I know you were actually at the Oldfield Head campus. You, of course, were at the new campus, so this answer may be a little bit different. But Mary, let's start with you. What was good and what was not so good?
I joined the rowing club, and need I say more? But that was probably the best part of my education, was just learning outside skills and meeting new people who were the same as me. And then having that foundation, because then you go into your careers, if you do choose to go into hospitality, and you have those relationships, you have them there from where you started. So that's what I liked about it. To be honest, there wasn't really too much I didn't like. So I haven't really got anything to say, anything negative, to be honest.
So it was a good time for you?
Yeah, it's one of the best times of my life, so I'm sure you're all experiencing it yourself, so I won't harp on too much about it.
Okay, great. David?
I was lucky enough to be at Stilhame, which I know is no longer there, but we played hard, we played really hard, and Philip Gibson's probably rolling his eyes right now because he knows how hard we did play. And it was a great time. There was a lot of independence, and I really enjoyed that independence of being away from home, doing what you wanted to do, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, knowing that you're there for a reason and there to get a qualification at the end of it. Probably played a little bit too hard the first 2-3 years, and that dawned on me in the final year, and that's where I had to really knuckle down and start doing some work to make sure that the first 3 years were worthwhile.
I'd like to ask you something which is slightly personal. It's not business related, but it interests me as a parent. There are some parents in the room here. When you were at university, I'll ask David first, did you have any anxiety? You enjoyed it clearly, but did you have anxieties? Were there things that you did worry about?
There was always a fear of, what do I do next? 4 years goes very, very quickly, particularly when it's so much fun. So what is going to happen at the end of this course? Am I going to see my friends again? That's really important. Am I going to get a job? Am I going to be successful? What sort of qualification am I going to get at the end of this? That's all really important stuff, which did sort of play on my mind. Reality is it all worked out, and some of the friends which I made at university, I still see now. I had dinner with one of them last night. I did get a job. I'd like to think I am successful. It did work out. They were real anxieties at the time.
So you were concerned about getting the right job once you'd left?
Absolutely, absolutely.
How about you, Mary?
That was the same thing for me, actually. It was difficult because, I wasn't like the brightest academic student. I never got many firsts. I never really was sort of like the top of the intellectual level of it. So when I was going through my degree, I thought, oh my God, like, how am I going to get a job? Am I going to earn enough money? Am I going to be that thing that everyone visualises they're going to be? But I think it's just a case of taking that pressure off yourself and knowing who you are, knowing what your strengths are, and using them to go into what you want to go into. But I think at the time at the university, it was very daunting to think about getting a job and to be competitive with all your fellow colleagues as well.
Okay. Within the hospitality area, apart from Peter Ducker, who do you admire?
I would say it's a difficult question to answer. There's lots of, I guess, individuals or even organisations which I would admire in hospitality, but I'm going to broaden that answer out a little bit to something more in general, which isn't in the hospitality industry. You're going to think this is weird and a bit wacky, but it's actually Bear Grylls. And it's not because he sleeps in a camel's stomach or anything like that, but Bear Grylls had a dream way back when he was very young, which was that he wanted to be in the SAS and he wanted to be in the military. And as part of that, he jumped out of an aeroplane in a parachute, and the parachute ripped, and he landed and broke 3 vertebrae into his back. But it didn't stop him. He still continued to train, and he still ended up in the SAS reserves, and now goes on to the person we know now. And really, the dedication and the commitment to fulfil a passion and a dream, that really inspires me. From Bear Grylls to actually to do the same.
Okay. Is there anybody in the hospitality industry you admire?
I think it's more organisations than that. It's the organisations, such as your Hiltons, your Marriott, those sort of guys who've really got the engagement of their teams, and we spoke about earlier in terms of employee engagement, which I think is now so important. We talked earlier about the living wage and how we can, as an industry, be competitive against other industries. And if it's not about how much we pay an individual, it's going to be about how we engage them and how we develop them within their role. And to me, that's important.
How about yourself, Mary?
Well, Alex touched earlier on her background and her relatives, and also Rocco Forte is a bit of a legend in himself. But obviously, my answer is going to be my dad, because he's a legend in himself in hospitality. So, Dad, that's for you.
That's really good. I can tell you, if my son said that, which is highly unlikely, I would be so proud. So I hope Graham is very proud. Well done. Let's get down into kind of a bit of the dangerous area, where especially where David's concerned. So I'm going to ask Mary the question first. Okay. How did you go about selecting your first position, and how did that work for you? And how did you find it? Coming that if you can. It's not so far back with you. Going from a student to going into the workplace, what were your feelings?
I took whatever I got at the time. I went for it, and I moved to London and got some grotty, horrible job that I absolutely hated as a sort of admin exec, sort of starting off down at the bottom. And I just worked my way through it and just put myself out of my comfort zone and just went and did something different and just started from there, really. There wasn't some sort of grand, glamorous start to my career. It was literally in the office, looking at a wall, doing paperwork 9 hours a day. That was where I started, but that's probably where I learned the most, to be honest with you, listening and going to things and typing up the contracts and starting off from that sort of perspective.
Did you feel that, just moving on from that, did you feel that university prepared you for whatever happened in that workplace, or was that something you had to do yourself?
I think there's an element of how much university can prepare you for things. I think if you use the resources and the opportunities they give you, then that's great. It does set you up to a point. But I think it comes from you as well. You've got to have the want to work hard and to change and to be in situations that you're not comfortable with and to sort of work through them as a human being yourself. I don't think anybody or anything can do it for you. I think you have to sort of come within yourself and really want to do something and work hard.
Okay, so just so you understand why I say it's a bit difficult with David, because I came to do a lecture in this university some time back. Obviously, it's actually 15 years ago. It's scary. It is. Yeah. And I looked at the students, and they were all very pale, and some of them were asleep. And they'd had a rough night. Only I could choose a day to do a 9 o'clock lecture when there was a kind of major pop rock concert the night before. But we did. And David was actually the only person that was actually paying any attention at all. So we kind of developed a relationship, and after that we thought, he's a pretty bright guy. Why don't we kind of employ him? And we actually took him on as my personal assistant. And it's very interesting to get a response from him now, because David, asked you the same question, but also, don't hold back. What was it like? I mean, Millennium Copthorne at the time was a bit chaotic, so I was probably pretty all over the place. And I remember we dumped you in the Middle East and said, bye-bye, here's a camel. And you came through it. But tell us something about that whole experience.
It was genuinely odd, believe me. It was incredible.
Thanks,
just to go back a few steps, yes, there was this opportunity discussed, and then it took a little bit of perseverance to make that opportunity into reality. It took a lot of phone calls, it took a lot of badgering, and eventually Tony turned around and said, I'll give you a job, just leave me alone, which is pretty much what happened.
Sounds like my wife.
And moving on from that, I then arrived on my first day, and Tony said to me, I'm not quite sure what I need you to do, but I just need you to get the rubbish off my desk. Okay, fine. Here's a set of car keys, go and see the hotels. That was it, that was pretty much my induction.
I remember.
And 2 weeks later, Tony says to me, I need you to go out to Turkey. I need you to go and have a look at 6 hotels which are being operated by the Turkish government at the moment, with a view for us to buy them and to start running them. And by the way, if you have a gun pointed at your head, don't worry about it, that's normal. And that was my introduction into the world of work, as it were. And it was incredibly difficult, because you're presented with so many situations where you're out of your comfort zone. It was amazing, it was an amazing opportunity. And the one thing which I learned at university was just to have that confidence to address a problem. And there were hundreds of problems in those first couple of weeks, or hundreds of situations which you'd never dealt with before. And just to have that confidence to sit back and think, right, how can I actually deal with this in the best way I can? And that's the one thing which I learned at my time at Plymouth, is how to do that.
So it's literally, like Alex said, guns blazing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Let me just move away from that. I'm going to come back to the kind of work scene in a minute, but I'm really interested in learning about what you do when you're not working, because you both do some exciting stuff. I mean, I know when we spoke on the phone, you were clearly into horses. That was obvious, and you've represented England, and you're a championship show jumper. Tell us something about that side of your life.
Well, yeah, I've always been horsey. I've always had a hobby. I've always had something that I've done on the side of working, and I think that's really important. I think it's important to have your space and to have your time really, where you can enjoy your life and enjoy what you do best at. So yeah, I have been horsey a lot throughout my whole life really. When I started work, it sort of died off a little bit because I was working so much and I was a long way from home, so that kind of did get put back to the back burner. But I think if you've always got a hobby and you've always got something that you love and you're passionate about, it's really important to bring it back into your life and make time for it, because you've only got one life, you've got to live it and enjoy it, and if you love horses or you love football or whatever, then do it,
On the question side then, do you have any major, you've done tremendously well, do you have any major ambitions left now to achieve something in the horse world?
We'll see. We have a question centre that recently my mum set up a couple of years ago, so things have changed now, and when I was show jumping I had a field and a shed with a horse in it, and I still managed to do some great things. So now that we've got the resources and we've got what we have at home, maybe things will change, maybe it might be the Olympics yet, but
really?
We'll see. I'm quite happy.
Watch this space.
Happy bobbing along in life at the moment, but you never know.
David, I had no idea you were such an avid cyclist. Did you wear these tight pants and the funny hat and everything?
I'm not going to admit to that, but you can see my figure. I'm an athlete, toned athlete.
Tell us about that side of your life though. What are you doing now with the bicycle world?
I got into cycling because I was really overweight. And generally I was going on 21, 22 stone at the time. And the doctor said to me, you may want to lose some weight, otherwise you won't be around for much longer. So I did. I lost 7 stone. And I got back for it, and I think Mary says something now, which you've got to get a work-life balance. It's so important. It's all very well sitting here saying, I'm going to work 14, 15, 16 hours a day. That's great, but you'll burn yourself out, you really will. Work hard, don't get me wrong, you have to work hard to be successful, but you need to be able to get away from it, and you need to be able to relax and get your thoughts clear. And that's what cycling does for me. It's 2, 3, 4, sometimes 24 hours on a bike, getting your mind straight, having time to yourself, and that's why I do it.
Okay, when you're both doing these passionate sports, do you think about the hotel world or do you think about the personal world? What is it?
I go into my own little world when I'm doing with my horses. And again, that's the work-life balance. I think when you're young and you're starting off, you're working so many hours and you're trying to prove yourself, and you have that pressure because you've got nothing on your CV yet as such. But when you're on the horse or rowing or playing football, whatever it is you do, I think it's just good to have that mental time out, just to be in your own little world, really. I mean, that's what happens to me anyway.
Okay, I think that's great advice.
Block anything out and just enjoy it.
Would you agree with that, David?
Yeah, I would. It is time just to have nothing in your mind, if that's what you want to do. Sometimes you do, you'll think about things, but it's more about just getting those thoughts out of your mind, just to refresh.
Let's go back to the workplace. One question which fascinates me, and when I'm talking to students who are in work for the first amount of time, and talking to my own children or my own grandchildren, they often say the same thing, or they often get to this subject, it's about the people they work with. But when you started, and let's again go back to you, Mary, you started more recent than David, but when you started, how did you find the people in the workplace? Did they just accept you? I mean, it was local for you, I think. Well, no, it was with Hilton the first time, wasn't it? So, did you find that they just accepted you, or was there an issue because you were of your age, or because you were a student, or they thought you were clever, obviously you had a great degree? What did you find the people?
To be honest with you, I think there's always issues. I think even if you're a kitchen porter, or you've started off as a coordinator or whatever, or even if you're the Prime Minister, you've got issues and you've got problems with people in the right place all the time. They never stop. So I did have issues when I first started, but that's the whole process of learning and growing as a person yourself anyway. You have to learn sometimes the hard way on how not to do things and how to do things. But issues happen everywhere in life, don't they? So.
Okay, good. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I've got so much fun here, couldn't I?
You could. Go on, you can go.
I would agree. There's this real difficulty about you leave an environment where you're very comfortable with your friends and your peers, and you go into the world of work. And it's learning how to present yourself professionally, understand that you don't know everything. You might think you do, but you don't. And even now, 16 years on, I still don't know everything. I'm still learning every single day. And it's acknowledging that and just using the experience of those people around you to progress yourself as well. There's no harm in admitting the fact that you may not know something and you need advice from other people. That's the biggest thing for me to learn, to use that experience around me.
Okay. I mean, again, without obviously getting too personal with people that we both know, you came into a mixed cultural environment. You joined a company that was 50%, well, actually, technically speaking, it was majority owned by the Chinese. Mm-hmm. And within the environment we worked with people, a lot of those were Chinese. Some of them were Chinese, and some of them were Singaporean Chinese. How much of a challenge was that?
There's a huge challenge in terms of learning different cultures, and I think that was compounded by the fact that at the same time I was also travelling around the world as well. I was doing some work in the Middle East, I was doing some work in Europe, in the Americas as well, and they're all very different cultures. And learning how business is conducted in each of those countries and continents, and trying to relate that back to working with Chinese as well and Europeans, it presented huge difficulties. Right at the beginning for myself personally, to try and understand how to deal with those situations. But again, it's a massive learning curve to do that.
Let's wind back a little bit. Tell us about Australia. I've never really asked you that question before. I mean, I know I could tell when we spoke on the phone and when we were on the internet together during that time, you were enjoying yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I booked a one-way ticket to Australia and lived in a tent in the tropical rainforest for the first 3 months. And I realised pretty soon that I wasn't a backpacker. I wasn't a tent goer. I wasn't a midgy person. I wasn't good with communal showers. It just wasn't for me. So after a couple of months, I got a job and started working. Originally, I started off in the Sheraton in Port Douglas, working as a housekeeper and then working in the bar in the evenings. And then I moved to Sydney and started off working as a breakfast waitress for the Hilton. So that's kind of where my Hilton sort of journey started for me. I loved it, and I enjoyed the ethos. I enjoyed the way that the corporate world worked within the hotel.
Was that the Sydney Hilton?
Yeah.
Big
so,
hotel.
Yes, it was right there. So I loved it, and from then on I came home, got a job, and sort of found myself a little bit out there. So I do recommend having some time to really figure out what it is you want, rather than the pressures of getting a job straight away. I mean, that's great for certain people, but for people like me, it was really beneficial to take some time out and learn what it is what I wanted, so that I could go into a career that I knew I wanted a goal from, so I could work towards it rather than just drifting through thinking, oh my god, is this real life? So yeah, that's what Australia taught me.
David, let's go back to Oxford. You were at Glen Eagles, which is a hotel which is fairly traditional and seen lots of changes over the years. You were there 15 years ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
It was a really exciting time, and again, it was one of those things where somebody said I couldn't do it, and it spurred me on to do that. It's my placement year at university. A very traditional hotel, it's a 5-star hotel. It's seen a massive amount of change over the past 10 to 15 years, but still the fundamentals of what they do up there remains. I went up there just 2 years ago, so you go into the bar for cream tea. The butter they use for cream tea is still on the top shelf on the left-hand side of the fridge, as it was when I was there 15 years ago. But it was an amazing experience. You get to meet a lot of famous people, a lot of celebrities. But the one thing they do there is they instill those standards into you, in terms of understanding that once there is a standard in place, you follow that standard until whoever needs to agrees that standard changes. And that's something I've tried to use throughout my career since. We put a standard in place and we continue to follow that standard until you will agree that that's no longer relevant and we move on to something else, just to get a consistency into the business.
Okay, so you started in the workplace about 14, 15 years ago, and you're in the workplace now, obviously. Well, many changes, many differences in those 15 years?
There's a huge amount of change. And I think technology has been a key driver behind that. It's the fundamentals of how you run a business and how you run a hotel are exactly the same as they were 10 to 15 years ago. But how you deliver that to your guest, or how you engage your team to help deliver that, has changed immensely. And how you use technology and embrace that technology to help you on that journey has changed significantly. And every day, every week, every month, every year, we have to look at our business model and see how we can best adapt that, depending on the needs of the market, but also what's coming out into the marketplace at any given time. So yeah, it changes on a constant basis.
Okay, interesting. Michael? I mean, it's only 4 years.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got my time to come.
But have you noticed any change at all during that time?
To be honest with you, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
That's a bit of a relief, actually.
Yeah, I mean, technology, social media,
Yeah.
we're all into that.
Yeah.
I was into that, 5 years ago, so really no. I mean,
It's probably need to bring you back and actually the question in 10 years' time.
Yeah, do.
So let me ask you, tell us a little bit about what you do now. I know you're now with Joris, which I think I forgot to mention, but you're now with a different company in sales.
Yes.
Tell us about what the life of Joris, what's it like for you?
So I'm now the sales manager at the juries in Plymouth, so I moved home back to my family, sort of establish myself back at home, but majority of the time now I look after corporate sales and leisure sales, so I look at getting companies to use us for their accommodation and selling meeting and event space and sort of generally the sales side of hotels. So it's a strange one, sales, because everybody thinks it's this sort of career where people go in, they flit out, they don't really work very hard, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and being down in Plymouth, sort of different market to what I've been used to, so it's just adjusting to that and adjusting to your environment, adjusting to the city, adjusting to your people that you're working with, and I've only just started, so again, ask me in 5 years,
Okay.
might not be there by then.
I'm sure you will if you wish to be. David, you're doing a particularly interesting job right now in a very difficult environment. Tell us something about that.
Yeah, so I'm General Manager of the Copthorne Hotel in Birmingham. It's a 211-bedroom hotel. We turn over around about £4 million a year. I get involved in everything. I get involved in the traditional operational side of things, so food and beverage, housekeeping, reception, that sort of thing, but also running the business. I'm responsible for the finance, for human resources, for health and safety, engagement with our team. We've got a team of 80 people who are all coming on quite a complex journey over the next couple of years, whereby our hotel's actually going to be rebuilt, so there'll be a new hotel built for us. And once that's built and we've moved across to that hotel, our old hotels can get knocked down. So it's a really challenging time, a really interesting time to be in Birmingham in this particular hotel, in terms of how that journey's going to evolve over the next couple of years, from where we are now to where we're going to be.
And how do you keep the staff motivated on a building site? I presume we've got dust, angry guests, a bit like Alex kind of described. Are you giving them champagne every day, or?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah, it can be difficult. It doesn't matter what's going on outside. We have a building site. We've got dust flying around. We have diggers. I was watching one of those big munching machines yesterday, just munching away at the side of the building. But it doesn't change the level of service that we can provide in a hotel. It doesn't change the meet and greet reception. It doesn't change the guy in the bar having one of my regular drinks ready for him as he comes into the bar, waiting for him. None of that has to change. We can still do that. In terms of keeping that team engaged and motivated to do that, it's about just providing them with information. You give them as much information as you can or you know about the development. And we did a lot of work on that over the past couple of years in terms of almost having that road journey of where we are now, where we're going to be, and where we are in that process. It can be a challenge, but it's also very, very rewarding to do that.
Thank you. Look, what I'd like to do is, in about 5-6 minutes, I'm going to throw some questions out to the audience. And I'd like you to kind of think about that quite seriously in the next 5-6 minutes. But what I'd like to do is to have a discussion between the three of us on 3 topics which I've been involved in with Plymouth and quite interestingly. You've actually half answered the first question. So I'm going to start with Mary. Mary, what do you think has been the major influences of technology in hospitality? And following through a little bit from what you've heard already on the evolutionary theme, is it working? Has it helped? Or is it just a kind of disaster?
I think technology in hospitality is definitely something that obviously we're embracing. I think as for any hotel, you have to work with it and you have to be on top of your game with your technology. And there are so many different areas of technology that are so advanced. I mean, Alex earlier was talking about how sometimes she wants to check in at 3 in the morning with a machine and not see anybody, and how other times she wants that human interaction. But my opinion generally is that you can't beat human contact within the industry, and despite technology being a big driver, it's all very well to embrace it and to take it with it to a point, but it can't replace that human contact, that human interaction, that will make people like me have a job. And I can encourage people, I can get sales in from human interaction, not from technology. So there is definitely a place for it, but I don't think it's the be all and end all of everything. I think everyone focuses on technology and they focus on that being the big thing moving forward, but it's a human being in industry. It's not IT, it's hospitality, and that is with people. So that's something that I rather focus on for me, is the human interaction side of it, as well as embracing the technology moving forward.
Well said. And do you find, because you've worked for 2 pretty important brands, Hilton and Joris, do you find those brands encourage that approach, or do you have to fight it a little bit sometimes?
It's a difficult balance to get. So Hilton are very, very corporate, and they're very industrial, and they're very, bling, and image. But they're also very set, and they're very hot on who they recruit, they're very hot on who they develop, and if they have talent within recruitment, people that they like, they will retain them as best they can, and they'll develop them and move them through the levels and use those important people to boost their hotels, to boost their brand. So as much as it is image and branding, and as much as it is that, it's also about the people who drive that behind it as well. So they sort of coincide with each other.
Okay, thank you. David, in the interest of time, because I want to kind of make sure we cover a lot of ground, let me skip the technology one, because I think you've actually answered it. The other thing I was involved in earlier this year with the students, and the students were terrific and wrote some really good stuff afterwards, was identifying what the trends are in hotels today, and what are the trends which are really kind of very apparent out there and having influence. What's your view on that? For you, what are the important trends out there now existing?
I think we heard earlier this concept of millennials, how you want to pronounce it, these 25 to 35-year-olds, high disposable income, very tech savvy, who are the consumer today, and they have knowledge. It's much easier now to get knowledge on what you want to buy than it ever has been before. And if you relate that to hotels, the dreaded TripAdvisor and Bookings.com and Redo, those sort of guys, they give you all that information. And for me, that's the main driver at the moment in terms of there's less loyalty for any particular brand. There is more loyalty towards good guest service, convenience, value for money. That's the important stuff there.
Okay. And that kind of follows through from what we've been hearing from our speakers today. Let's move on to another subject, so we cover that. What about the future? Do you have any strong views about what the drivers will be in the future?
Yeah, again, the TripAdvisors and the online booking tools, so your Booking.com and late rooms, I think they dominate hospitality at the moment quite substantially in the corporate world anyway. I know that for leisure hotels it can be slightly different, but that is something that it's a slight concern, because especially in my job dealing with rates and selling rates to businesses, if they're going to get it cheaper on Booking.com, then what's the point in going so low with a rate that it's not even worth having someone in the hotel room. So I think that the future trends moving forward will be monitoring and managing these sites and embracing as well, like TripAdvisor, rather than seeing it as a negative, use it to your strength. You know, I use that as a sales tool now when I'm doing my renegotiations, and keep your ears shut compared to the hotels, but I use that as a bonus and say, look at us on TripAdvisor, we're proud of it, and if we do have an issue with a bad comment, then great, it's an opportunity to rectify it and to make it right. And you know, so I think embracing it is a key thing.
Great, good answer. Look, it's time to throw it up to the audience. We have about kind of 7-8 minutes for them while they're just thinking of their first question. Have you noticed how things have changed? Normally, the interviewer gets the best chair. Have you noticed that? I don't get arms, I get nothing. These two guys get swivel chairs, the whole thing. Amazing. Things have changed. I'm only joking, but come on, it's your time. So you've got two people out here who've been there, done it. They're students, they're graduates from Plymouth. I personally think they are great ambassadors for Plymouth. What would you like to hear from them? If you just shout out and say whether the questions for both of them or one of them, whatever you wish. Where's the first question? Excellent. I think we have a microphone actually up at the top, Kat. Okay, wherever. And then we'll go up to the top. There's one up there. Yes.
So both of you, how well do you feel that your time at university equipped you for going into the industry? Because a lot of people say now that even graduates that leave university, they still don't know enough to sit them in the right positions, or they're not being taught the correct experiences to go in, for example, general manager positions. So how well do you think that your time at university helped you to go into the industry?
Sure. For me, I guess let's describe it like driving a car. You learn how to drive a car during your lessons and you pass a test. It's only when you pass your test you actually learn to drive. It's pretty much the same in terms of your degree gives you the ability to go off and start to learn the nuts and bolts of running a business. That degree will give you that knowledge of how to run a business and relate it specifically to hospitality. But please don't be under any illusion that once you leave university you won't learn any more. Every single day, every single month, you learn more every single day. And that's what makes it so interesting, so exciting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that it gives you a good round knowledge of the hospitality industry, and I think you get a good angle of everything, but it's up to you to know what it is you enjoy and to just go for it. I mean, if you like food and beverage, then crack on and go for it. The great thing about Plymouth for me was like I got an understanding of everything. So from finance, which is my general weakness, just numbers, can't stand them, but I learned about it, I can do it. So, you know, if you go into an organisation and you think, oh God, they want you to do a bit of revenue, you're okay because you've had that experience. But if you do have a niche that you want to go into, then you take what you've learned and then you go forward and have more experiences with that and crack on and go for it.
I think that's a really important point. The ultimate be-all and end-all is not a general manager. It can be a director of sales, it can be a financial controller, it can be human resources manager. They're all very significant positions within the hospitality industry. So it doesn't have, you are allowed to specialise in one area if that's what you enjoy and that's what you want to do. You don't have to be a master of all things. If you enjoy one area, then specialise in that.
Thank you, David. I think there's one up at the back there, Kat. Well, lady here to the left, she's been really trying hard. Yes, go.
Well, my strength is people, so my comfort zone is people. I like people, I'm good with people, and I wanted to adapt that into hospitality. And I think I'm a natural salesperson, so it just made sense to crack on and go into sales. And That's what made me do it, my love for people and to work with them proactively within the hotel, not just within food and beverage or reception, but to be outside there more and to interact with them on a different level and people from outside of the hotel as well. So that's kind of, that's what made me go.
I'm so pleased Mary said that, because I would not sit here and deny the benefits of marketing and social media and are very important. But because everybody's going that route, these skills which Mary identifies are actually they're not dying, but they're getting difficult to find, and they're very important. Thank you for that. One for David, do you have?
Yeah. So when let's see. When I was doing my placement, I was also speaking to the general manager there as well. But to become a general manager, do you have to have experiences from every single department? Because obviously general manager, you have to know generalized things about managing hotels.
It helps. Yeah.
Food, beverage, and so on and so forth.
Sure. It does help. A lot of general managers you'll find will come up through the ranks in a certain area, either rooms or food and beverage. For me, it was food and beverage. My advice to anybody now is, if you can, get that experience of everywhere. So spend a year, spend 6 months in housekeeping. You may sit and say, well, I know how to make a bed. Yeah, you might know how to make a bed, but do you know how to manage a housekeeping team? Do you know how to allocate rooms and make sure they're efficient as they can be? Be in reception, even be in maintenance. So these are all things which you need to understand. So my best advice is that if you want to get to that sort of role, then spend some time in every area to actually do that, rather than do what I did. And do I regret it? I don't regret it, but going back I would have done it differently, which is focus specifically on food and beverage, because then I had to spend a lot of time later on in my career focusing on the other areas such as rooms and revenue management and sales and human resources to make sure I had that even keel of experience.
So what sort of time is a good time period? Would you say, it's good to do a year of front office and then a good year of food and beverage? But then obviously, if you're doing a year of different things, then you will have to start from the very bottom, let's say housekeeping, you start from making repairs, cleaning rooms, and then go to supervising it and so on and so forth.
Sure. It's very difficult to say you need to do a year in each. I think it would be very unfair to say that or to advise that, because we've all different skill sets, and some of us will naturally be better at numbers, for example, and therefore deal with revenue management or financial management better than others. Reality is, if you're as good as you say you are, if you're as good as you think you are, and you invest the time in certain areas, developing the skills of managing people and supervising people is one thing compared to the skills of checking somebody in, for example. The skill of managing and supervising people, you can move across all departments. You just need to understand the process which you need to manage or supervise.
Thanks, David. Guys, you've been really good asking questions. We've got time for one more, and I'm sure you can carry them on later into the cocktail area. So one more here, yeah, for both of them, for both David and Mary.
I have a question more relating to outside hospitality. Is there anyone when you were at uni that wanted to be outside of it but did a hospitality degree? Because I found the whole way through I loved hospitality, but I've sort of picked a niche and I've gone for food, and I'm really interested in food, but I'm not interested in food and beverage as such. And I just wondered if you've ever come across anyone else that wanted to do a food science or learn about food behaviours or anything. Just this is quite specific and probably quite a controversial question. But
Definitely, I think, to be honest with you, hospitality is great, it's a great degree to do, but it's just the fact that you've done a degree and if you've trained yourself mentally for 3 years and you've been organised and disciplined and you have those skills and you learn those skills, you can do anything you want to do. You can do that anyway, even if you don't have a degree. If you want to go and do something, there's nothing stopping you. So if you want to go and be, a catering company owner, you can do that. I mean, even with a hospitality degree, it just gives you the foundation for those 3 years for employers to see. It hasn't got to be, you're not set in stone now to do this forever. I mean, God, life's short. Go and do what you want to do and use this to your advantage, Say all your modules are about food.
Good advice. David, anything to add?
I still keep in touch with a lot of friends who I went to university with, teachers, property managers, even estate agents. Just because you do a degree in food or hospitality or whatever it may be, fundamentals that are running a business are exactly the same. And the skill set you learn here, you can put into any industry. So don't feel constrained that you have to go into hospitality. Personally, I think it's a great career to have. It's not for everybody, and there's no point doing something that you're not going to enjoy. So if you want to use those skills for something else, go for it.
Thank you, David. Thank you to both of you. One thing I want to ask you to do, because you've got all these students out here, they're looking at you thinking, that's interesting, yeah, I might do something there. I'd like you each, and I know this is quite difficult, to very, very briefly, each of you, to give them 3 pieces of advice, if it was the only advice that you would give them. Okay, 3 pieces as quickly as you can. So let's start with Mary.
Be happy, do what you enjoy doing, and really enjoy life. If you're going to go into hospitality, know that it comes with hard work and it's long hours and it's not easy, but it can be very rewarding. And number 3, be the best you can be.
I think Alex Felicity was listening to you before she
Yeah,
said
I gave her a pep talk before she came in.
Well done, Mary, thank you. David, 3 pieces very quickly.
Enjoy your time here. Don't forget you've got to work hard. You are here to get qualification, and that's really important. I would, if you're in your final year, take some time out, reflect on what you want to do, and then if you've got that dream, just keep chipping away at it, and eventually you will succeed. And that's I guess the best advice.
Thank you. Mary, David, I've really enjoyed talking to you. I think you've done a terrific job. You're both very successful in your own ways, and I wish you all the success in the future, and keep those guns blazing. So thank you. Please stand.